Laura Nauser, and let's see, I'm going to be 47 here in about a month, so we might as well, for all intents and purposes, say that's how old I am, and running for 24th District House of Representatives.
All right. We'll start off with just tell us something that voters might not know about you. Obviously familiar with your 5th Ward service on the City Council of Columbia, but something that voters might not know about you.
Well, I think what maybe some people may not know about me is I've been in Columbia since 1992. I do have 2 children. My daughter's 27 and married and lives in Atlanta, and my son is soon to be 16 and over at Rockbridge High School. I like to tell people that I have 3 rescue dogs, so that always turns up some interesting discussions when we're all together. And I have a horse, so that's how I spend my free time out riding in our beautiful state parks.
Perfect. Well, let's switch gears onto issues. I think it's appropriate given kind of your priority. Number one in this campaign has been taxes and your kind of stance towards lower taxes. Missouri's state tax system, at least by some, has been criticized as being rather regressive. And I'm wondering how you think that we should handle that, especially in a time when revenues have been low, and that's been a cause of a lot of budget problems.
You know, that is always the debate that we have is, should we raise taxes or should we, try and keep things as is? I'm a believer that, we need to go back and look at our budget and see where it is can we further cut. I don't believe in raising taxes. This is a hard economy, and when we talk about raising taxes on, our Missouri citizens, that's going to further impact their spending ability. And, we've seen declining sales revenue. We've seen when we raise taxes, employers have additional costs, which cause them to look at, do we need to let go of more employees? We have to reduce benefits. So I think really in this economic climate, we need to just live within our means and cut out a lot of the waste and things where we absolutely can.
Your opponent has come out and said that he's in favor of raising a cigarette tax, and he says that's a really practical way to raise revenue, even though, politically feasible or not. He says that's the most practical way to do that. I wonder whether you agree with that stance or not.
I disagree with that for 2 reasons. Actually 3 reasons. First of all, I don't believe in raising taxes in a difficult economic climate. Second, when we raise cigarette taxes, I was just doing some research. The American Heart Association points out that 35% of people who smoke live in poverty, so that would have a hardship on people who are already living in poverty. And I have a concern when we tax one group of individuals to make up shortfalls in state budgets. So again, I think what we really need to do is go back again, look at all of the programs and things that the state offers and does, cut it back where we can. Can we go to more technology? Can we reduce, copying? At the city council level, we saved over $80,000 the first year that we went to paperless and started doing things on our computer. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can go back and reduce some of our spending, and that should be the first priority before we talk about raising taxes.
One of the ways you've talked about kind of going back and looking at programs that already exist is getting a cut into social services. You've argued that that they already take up 42% of the state's budget, and that there's probably some cuts to be found in there. But at the same time, the things that really made the toughest headlines in the budget situation were cuts in the Department of Mental Health, and that was a really tough sell politically. How do you make that sell to cut out of social services when a lot of people are worried that we're already hitting bone, if you will?
That is a very good question, and that is very difficult. We face that, I think, as all leaders in the political realm. How do you sell those types of cuts? Again, I think that if we can go back and just maybe reprioritize, and it's tough decisions. That's what we're going to have to make. We can't continue to go on as we are. If we have to look in the future of how to raise revenue, I believe personally that we raise revenue by increasing job opportunities. The more people that are working in our state, the more revenue that will be generated coming into the state coffers. So that's why I want to focus on job creation. Have to tighten our budget. We have to do it at home. We may have to make tough decisions at home when our budgets shrink. We don't have the expendable income, so we may not be able to go out as often. We may have to cut our grocery bill or, reduce our utility bills. So I think there's still a lot of ways that we can go back and say, let's ask our department heads at the state to come up with some innovative ideas and ways to maybe reduce costs without having to cut programs.
Conversely, you talk about job creation, but what are your budget priorities? If something comes under fire in the budget making process, what are you really going to stand up for? What are you not going to stand for seeing cut in the budget?
Well, I think the things that I'm going to stand for, education is very important to me. I think that, we need to make sure that we at least continue our education funding as it is with no further cuts. I think that's important. The university, the university is a great economic driver in our region, in our state. So we need to make sure that there's adequate funding for the University of Missouri, elementary and secondary education, job opportunities and growth. The idea of going back and looking at some of our tax incentives and credits that we have offered, making sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck on those issues. And if we're not, getting rid of some of those. And so I think it's just going to be a case by case, but really infrastructure, public safety, and education have to be the priority.
You've argued just in general for more limited government, for less federal intrusion in the state's mandates and this sort of thing. At the same time, the stimulus came in and really, you look at it objectively and it really just buoyed the state, kept the state's budget afloat for the past few years. Obviously, it's going away this year. As you go through this budget making process. But how do you square the idea that the federal government shouldn't be involved with the fact that the federal government really kept the state's budget from really having to make some really even more tough decisions this year?
It really prolonged our agony is what it did. Maybe it extended, programs and employment for another year when we used those funds. So, I just have a concern at the federal level that we continue to see spending going out of control at the federal level, and that cannot be sustained. The state of Missouri's budget relies on about a third of the money for federal spending. So, when cuts are made at the federal level, that's going to impact us here in the state of Missouri and trickle down to, local and communities.
Your opponent has talked about a partnership that he says he's formed with State Senator Kurt Schaefer, saying that he would kill the dickens out of any legislation that would block data center funding, tax credits for a data center here in Boone County. And I wonder if you would like to join him in the promise that you join with Kurt Schaefer and support those and obstruct other policies if that doesn't get through.
Well, the data center is very important on my agenda. Working with the city at that level, I know how important that data center could be to our city, our region, and the state. So that is extremely important and top priority on my agenda too. And actually, I'm working on that at the city level. So I'm looking forward to us hopefully having a new employment opportunity here in the region and being kind of a catalyst for more to come.
Just kind of a little bit more broadly about the race, your opponent has a lot of experience, a lot of name recognition, has a significant fundraising edge. What's it been like to run against Chris Kelly, given those kind of hurdles that you have to face?
It's been very interesting. I have to say, I'm out, I'm walking the streets, talking to the people in the 24th District, and I've really been able to enjoy that, and I've had a wide array of comments and discussions with people as I've gone door to door. So that's been a really good experience. The fundraising, that's a different beast all within itself. I did put in some of my own money for my race. And, I really believe that I wanted to make this race not about fundraising. My opponent is a very good man, and he's had several years to, store up a good war chest, so to say. And, I'm just making it about getting out and talking to the people. I've been on the city council for 5 years now, 5.5. I do have some name recognition. And like I say, I wanted to make it about the people and not about fundraising.
Mm-hmm. I remember reading something that you said, it was a couple of years ago at this point. It was before you were elected to the 5th Ward, but you said, that you kind of were approached at the last minute and you kind of filed at the last minute for the 5th Ward. Would you ever picture yourself in this situation here running for the 24th District at this point?
No, I wouldn't. That long-term politics was never in my game plan. I, ran for the city council. I graduated college late. I graduated college in 2004, and I was able to take that education that I learned and took that to the city council. I've really enjoyed the city council and the many issues and things that we've dealt with there. I said at that time, and I told my family, I said, I'm not going to be a career city council individual. I'm going to put in about 2 terms. My term is going to be up in 2011. And I just thought, to maybe take it to the next level and see if people in the 24th District would have me to serve for them. And so, it's been interesting. And like I say, 2-3 years ago, I never would envision myself sitting here. And so it's been fun and challenging altogether.
Another kind of big picture question. How do you, it's kind of a bitter atmosphere between Republicans and Democrats nationally. It's bled somewhat into state politics. How do you approach Republicans or how do you approach Democrats, and how do you form that bipartisan partnership and try and foster that kind of cooperation?
Well, I think, my city council experience has given me good background in that, because we are nonpartisan there. So politics doesn't even come into it. It's ideas, and it's how do we work with each other to solve the problems for the people in our state. this party thing, you think sometimes gets blown out of proportion. It kind of comes back to some, local politics where you have, development and non-development issues that seem to get blown up more in other realms than maybe what really is. I get along with all people, and all people that have different opinions, and I welcome different opinions. So I think that will allow me to work across aisles and work with all people. Because really, we have the same objective, and that's to do good for the citizens of the state of Missouri. We need to put some of those partisan bickering aside and get to work and roll up our sleeves and do what's right for the citizens of the state.
Okay. Laura Nauser, 5th Ward City Council Representative in Columbia, running for the 24th District in the state of Missouri. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yep.